Yeah, the weather is coming in. Welcome back to the cabin, everyone. I'm out here enjoying a wonderful time here. It's been really hot, really buggy, but it also means that we're getting a bit of bad weather. Temperature is supposed to drop, I don't know, by 5 to 7 degrees compared to the trend that it's been in the last 5 days. So a big one's coming in. This is just the leading edge of it here, but I want to do a video today on storm safety in the backcountry. With climate change, we're all experiencing some more extreme weather these days, being it fires and floods and thunderstorms, tornadoes that have been much more severe than we've ever seen in recent times. And certainly the events are coming closer and closer together. So these 100-year events are much more common. End of June, we had some terrible storms here in Ontario, particularly northern Ontario, where some downbursts occurred and unfortunately trapped a lot of campers at Champlain Provincial Park and in everyone's beloved Algonquin Park. Trees were falling down all over. People were crushed in their tents, in their RVs, and even in their vehicles. A massive evacuation had to occur for Champlain Provincial Park, and also a serious evacuation as well in the backcountry of Algonquin. A woman and her young child were sort of trapped in the very deep bush of Algonquin Park. A tree had fallen on their tent late in the evening, and there's many hours before they could be rescued. And so she had to activate her wilderness first aid knowledge to keep her son safe and alive until rescue could arrive. So these events, we need to prepare for them. They are becoming more common. So what can you do if you're doing some camping or backcountry hiking and severe weather strikes? So I've been in some pretty bad weather, summer and winter. I've been in freezing rainstorms. I've been, in the bush when there have been blizzards coming in. And also when a very severe string of thunderstorms came through this spring in Frontenac Provincial Park. Let me tell you, it was terrifying. You feel pretty vulnerable out there in the bush. It's not like you're in your house sort of semi-protected by the roof and all the walls and things like that, or, you're, going into your basement. If there's a tornado warning, you really have very little that you can do. Prepping for these events when you're in the backcountry starts before the trip. So knowing what kind of weather you may be experiencing and packing accordingly, and also packing accordingly for those unexpected weather events. There's certainly been times where I've been camping and a sudden storm cell comes through. Wasn't really predicted, but one little cell came right through and just drenched us in rain. So being prepared is always good when you can. So before your trip, whether it be hiking or camping, make sure that you tell somebody where you're going, sort of the stages of your trip and where you plan to be. That way, if emergency strikes, someone will know where to find you. Also really important is to bring with you a way that you can contact the authorities if you're into trouble. So I carry a personal location beacon that sort of wires in with local emergency response teams. It sends out a beacon, a signal. So if an emergency, I just deploy it and help will be on the way. It may not be immediate, keep that in mind, but it is a way that someone can come and find you when you're deep in the bush and there's no cell service. Not everywhere you're going to be going, hiking or camping will have a reliable cellular signal. Sometimes it's kilometers away from where you're going to be, where the signal can be picked up on your phone. So although it's important to have a cell phone and a battery bank to charge it, for when you do get signal, it's important to carry something that can work off the grid, like a personal location beacon or, those Garmin InReach minis. I believe that's what the woman in Algonquin Park had. She had those little InReach minis so she could send an SOS out and be in contact with the authorities during the entire rescue process. So they aren't cheap, but when you need them, it's really amazing. They can deliver help, maybe not immediately, depending on where you are, but help will be on the way. So having something like that is really important. A lot of cell phones now also have sort of satellite phone capability. I think the iPhones do and some of the Androids now as well. So that is important to have that, but don't rely 100% on your cell phone. I must admit, I do have my cell phone with me. So even if it doesn't work, the GPS on it will work. And also I can use my What 3 Words app. That's a really important app you should always have on your phone. It works when there is no cell signal. It gives emergency responders another way to find you, because every spot on this planet has a unique 3-word code in this system. so that where you are, you can fire up the app. It gives you the 3 words, and you can tell authorities whereabouts you are located if you don't have an exact GPS signal. So that is really helpful. A lot of emergency first response teams in various regions are now using that as part of their, as part of their search and rescue. They know exactly what that means and how to find you. I know when we were camping in Algonquin Park, each campsite on the little plaque would list those 3 words, so you could tell people where you were with your satellite phone if you were in an emergency. With the weather rolling in, you want to know what kind of weather you're in for in the backcountry, so I like to bring a small little crank radio with me when I'm camping. So just quickly want to show you guys the crank radio that I have. It's a Midland brand. I got it from Cabela's, Bass Pro Shops. So it's just a good brand of radio. It has AM, FM, and I've got the weather alerts on it right now. So if there is weather issues, so we're going to get that through here. It also comes with a flashlight with it, so you can turn it on. There's different levels to the brightness, and it also does the SOS, which is really important. So also important to have a flashlight. Cool that it's all in this little radio here. Of course, there's the volume buttons, the tuner, and that helps you set if you want your weather alerts. And it is solar rechargeable, which is awesome. It's got a little antenna, which you should extend when you're using it. And it's got the little crank here because it has a rechargeable battery inside. So super important when you're off the grid camping to have something like this to get your weather. And then it's like really easy. The little crank comes out and you just kind of wind it around to charge it. So it's super easy. I'll just show you. Just kind of actually pull this out first and then go around like that. And I'll start charging your battery up. And you'll see the battery marker right there. So you don't have to, plug this in to USB. You can plug this into the wall and charge it. There's a little port right in here. And you can also charge, the battery is useful for charging up some of your items, like if your cell phone's going dead or something like that, you can charge in there. There's a little headphone jack. It doesn't have the Bluetooth on this one, but that's okay. And you can just sort of cycle through here. Let me show you the weather channel here on it. All right, here we go. Have a listen.
39. UV index 9 or very high. Thursday night, becoming cloudy in the evening with showers or thunderstorms. Amount 30 millimeters.
And of course, it also has your AM and your FM radio there as well. I just want to show you what it does when an alarm comes on. And here it comes. The other thing you should have is a first aid kit. I have a backcountry kit with me for everything that I might need in a really bad emergency out there. Especially, if trees are falling down, you're getting injured, scraped up, you want to have a way to treat some wounds, maybe a way to stabilize like a fracture or something, like one of those like SAM splints, or, you can have, for example, saws or things like that. So you can kind of make splints for your leg or whatever. So tools like saws, axes are really important. If you're doing some backcountry driving, I know I do a lot of that, we're exploring the logging roads or these old ghost towns that I've been doing, you may want to bring with you a chainsaw in your trunk, because sometimes storm hits, you weather it, it's fine, but then you go to drive out and you can't because there's trees all down the road. So even if you're driving into these access points to go canoeing or whatever, you may not be able to get out if there's been a downburst and all the trees are down along the road for 20 kilometers. So you want to have a full chainsaw full of gas, maybe a small gas can with you in your car so that you could, contact the authorities to rescue you, but also kind of work your way out to the main road as best you can. And also taking a chainsaw safety course if you plan on doing that. A lot of times also I have had, if I've gone camping somewhere and I've driven into an access point, I will have emergency supplies at the vehicle. So I'll have an extra first aid kit, I'll have extra, emergency blanket, food, rations. When we were camping in the blizzard, I made sure that the car actually was full of wood, so that if we got back to that site, couldn't get out, we were trapped, that we had firewood for a while to keep warm. So if you can, use that as your second resource, cache of food and blankets and sleeping bags, other kinds of things. If you have the space for an emergency situation, especially if you'll be camping during a weather event. Something that also is becoming more important these days is to take a first aid course with CPR. I did a wilderness first aid course with Boreal River Rescue, and coincidentally, that's where the woman that was treating her son in the deep bush there in Algonquin Park, she did her emergency first aid training through Boreal River. You can actually find her first account of what happened there and how she got through her situation on the Boreal River Rescue website. She did a post recently. So those guys are great. There's lots of other companies that do it. She had the Wilderness First Responder, which is, I think, 2 or 3 levels above what I did, because she's been going so deep in the woods, and sometimes it's hours before you get rescue. I think they're kind of on the level, not quite a paramedic, but sort of approaching that level of expertise, more than just a wilderness first aid course. But wilderness first aid absolutely is a baseline for everyone if you're spending a lot of time out in the bush, just to know, to help your friends or family or even yourself for self-rescue if you end up in a tricky situation. So this is what everyone's been waiting for. What do you do when there's thunder and lightning in the area and threats of tornado? Well, these things, 65% of lightning strikes happen to people that have been doing outdoor activities. Lightning kills, and even within 20 meters of a lightning strike, it's fatal. As the electricity goes into the ground and things like that. Injuries can be even 20 to 30 meters out from the epicenter of a lightning strike. So, you really have to be careful out in the woods. So what do you do if these storm cells come in? Well, where possible, if you're at a campground, for example, try to get into a building that has really solid structure. If you can't get into a building, then get into your car. That's sort of the next best thing. If you're doing camping in a vehicle, it will shield you somewhat from falling branches and things like that. It's not infallible. Certainly you can get crushed in your vehicle, but it is something that you can do. It is better than a tent in that situation. So getting into a car or into a building is ideal. So buildings that are not safe to be in during a storm would be outhouses, picnic shelters, things like that. You kind of want a building that has wiring or plumbing that goes into the ground. I'm actually trying to make a plan for the cabin here. I think I need a lightning rod. We don't have plumbing or anything to kind of ground the building itself. So because we're getting more severe weather out here, I definitely want to get a lightning rod installed. I thought about that a long time ago, never really did it, but now it's becoming more important than ever. Certainly when you're putting up your tent in the woods, look around you, look at all the trees around you. If you see things that look unsteady or old, then I would not put my tent under that. Having said that, even in, downbursts and tornadoes, even healthy big trees can be completely uprooted by the ground and fall on you, or the tops can kind of fall off and land on you, and you can't possibly predict that. So if you're in a campground with, you're in a trailer, for example, the most dangerous are sort of pop-up trailers and trailers that sort of have more like softer roofing. If you have something like an Aerostream that's like some kind of a metal trailer, very sturdy roofing system, then you're a bit safer, obviously, but your car would be number one. Tents is a bit tricky. Basically, if you're in a treed area, there is risk there. You need to be aware of it and have an evacuation plan in mind if you start hearing, things cracking and falling down. Of course, stay away from poles and wires, like the poles in your tent, for example. Stay away from the peaks of mountains, for example, and open areas that are bigger than 100 meters. You're kind of an open target there. The best place to be if you are stuck in a storm is a dry, low-lying depression like a ravine. You don't want to go in one that has water, but something that is like a dip. And obviously spread out your party as far as possible to avoid multiple casualties. So if there is a lightning strike in the area, someone is injured, the more you guys spread out, the better chance someone will survive it and be able to kind of get help. But be careful for flash flooding and things like that as well. That's always a consideration depending on where you're camping. Yeah, there really is no safe place outdoors during a thunderstorm. So when you hear that thunder rumble, get indoors and stay in your safe location as best you can for 30 minutes after the last thunder rumble. I'd also advise that everybody, you've got all your camping gear and stuff like that, but make sure if you know weather is coming to have an emergency bag in case you have to evacuate your location for safety reasons. So you're going to want to have maybe a life straw so you can get some fresh water. You can have a little bit of snacks and food, first aid kit, your SOS device, cell phone with charger, perhaps a crank radio so that you can get the weather if your cell phone dies, for example. Also bring a way to signal help, like flares, a whistle, and like a little pocket knife or something like that. Some dry clothing, a raincoat, medications, just something that you can be prepared when you have to evacuate your site during an emergency. You should also bring ways to start fire, a little bit of dry clothes, and medications, obviously, if you need them as well. This list isn't exhaustive. There are websites that do provide you kind of bug out kit list, but that's just a few examples of things you can have in your emergency evacuation bag. And just be aware the terrain can look very different after sort of a natural disaster in an area. So if you kind of get up and look around after the storm and all these trees are down, you can be incredibly disoriented. You may not be able to see the trail very well, or where to go next. So just being careful if you are setting off your SOS device. Don't wander off too far, obviously, from where you sent off your signal. You can get lost and injured because there are trees still could be trying to fall down, or branches are hanging, or things like that. So be extremely careful when you're evacuating your site, and don't go too far. Only go as far as necessary and set off your signal there, because you could get very lost and disoriented in the woods post-storm. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone, for a little refresher on emergency preparedness in the backcountry. Hopefully I've given you a few little tips or tricks that you can take with you on your next adventure. Let me know if there's any other tips you have for everyone else down below in the comments based on your own personal experiences. Have a great week, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.